You are going to get through this.
Easy for listening. I was able to do it.
Easy dancing.
I'm not a great lover of cow, that's my fear.
You're a disgrace, you are.
Not me, that's my fear.
You're a disgrace, you are.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Have Your Say, one-on-one shadowboxing. Today, the WTV studios, my guest is David Archibald. David, welcome again. The topic today is something which is really affects all of our lives. Affects because we can be the victims of that, or someone in the family or the neighbors. We heard about being already the victims or becoming one. And this is cancer, and the many phases of cancer. So how do you get into that topic of cancer in your research life?
20 years ago, I used to play tennis with a CEO of a cancer drug.
I hope you still play tennis.
I played tennis with a bloke who used to research cancer drugs, a bloke called Graham Kelly, who founded a company called Novogen. Anyway, as a result of that, I got interested in cancer and followed the science up.
Cancer. Cancer is the 20th century, they say. Now the 21st century is one of the biggest disease. Combine, all of them into one and causing the most death of the people.
Well, it's raw stats. It's about half of people will be diagnosed with cancer during their life at some stage, and 25% will die of it. So half your cancers will be solved, and or you might die with them, but not of them, and 25% chance of being killed by a cancer. And there are some avoidable cancers. For instance, breast cancer rate, 11% of women get diagnosed with breast cancer, 5% die of it. 11% of men get diagnosed with prostate cancer, and 5% die of prostate cancer. But if you look at the statistics for some other countries around the world, Japan, China and so on, their prostate and breast cancer rates are a fraction of ours. 1/6 in Japan actually for breast and prostate. But Japanese migrating to the US go to the US breast and prostate cancer rates within a generation. So it's not genetic, it's dietary, and therefore it's very easy to fix.
That's what we hope. That's easy to fix. However, our everyday life suggests something different. When you got a diagnosis of cancer, you have to go through the rigid and rigorous sort of treatments of modern medicine. You have to have the chemo, you have to have the operation, you have to have certain things, and then, as you say, 25% of people survives. But if you're looking at the countries, in different countries in the world, the cancer rate is so different in these sort of cancers. And from my childhood I heard, they're different because the people got different genes. And before that they said it's different because they eat differently. So which one, the genetical or the eating?
It's eating, the eating.
So what we eat, what we are.
To give your viewers some actual fact,
Yes.
300 years ago, Europeans survived and ate, and quite happily, on a diet that largely consisted of beans for their protein content. And then with the Black Death, the population fell and labour became scarce and more people ate meat. But basically for the last 300 years at least, we've been eating a lot more meat in our diet. And Western food has devolved mostly into comfort food. And the baked dinner, you can't do anything about the meat, although it has lots of things in it which are very good for us, because you're basically eating yourself, so to speak. But all those baked vegetables that had any nutritive value simply gone out of them.
Because of the process of making it.
Yes, steaming, baking and the whole caboodle.
But then what's happening with the fast food industry?
Oh, no, fast food's a different kettle of fish. They want to reduce their costs as much as possible and stop you walking out the door if you haven't been served in 30 seconds. Well, not so much the processing, it's what they give you. Chips. Chips are probably the most evil thing you can eat. They're basically sugar cubes soaked in fat.
So is any specific plants molecules are beneficial in regard to cancer or the defense of cancer?
Okay, well, we'll tell a story. I became involved in cancer in '96, and by 2001 I was living here in Perth, and one day I was bored, so I looked up the net about one of the companies that I was invested in, and we'd thought that the molecule, the drug, acted on another molecule called sphingosine.
Yes.
And I looked up sphingosine, and I was told, no, it's not sphingosine, it's a molecule called T-Nox. I looked up that and came to a bloke called Professor Morey, Jim Morey, at Purdue University, Indiana. So I asked him about T-Nox, and he said, you can have the blood test for cancer and a drug as well. So a week later, I went to Purdue University, Indiana, flew out, and we agreed to collaborate. And what they'd done is they'd found an alteration on the external membrane of cancer cells, which only occurs on cancer cells and which a whole lot of plant molecules can bind to and thus affect the expression of it. 90% of cancers occur because of overproduction of anti-apoptotic proteins that stop the death receptor working, and it's what's called the apoptotic cascade of the caspases from working. So it's 90% of those, and if you can get that apoptotic cascade working again,
then your problem is solved.
yes, no more cancer, for at least 90% of them.
Yes.
And it turns out that while no plant molecule binds to ordinary NOx, which sends the energy down to make these anti-apoptotic proteins, a number of plant molecules bind to T-Nox, tumor NOx, which only occurs in cancer cells. So you have the potential to get ordinary plant molecules out of your diet and use them to target only cancer, and it won't affect your normal cells.
Right,
Anyway,
yeah.
that was a promise of the technology that the Morays are doing. And so they did some lab work, and they came up with a mixture of two chili pepper powders, Gallo and Ancho, which are the mildest of the chili pepper powders, and they basically dominate Mexican cooking, and broccoli sprout powder, which has a molecule in it called glucoraphanin. And glucoraphanin is affected by an enzyme called myrosinase to produce sulforaphane. And sulforaphane only has a very short half-life of about 30 minutes in the body.
Really?
So the plant stores it as glucoraphanin, and the idea in the plant is that you have a vacuole with glucoraphanin, another one with myrosinase, and an insect bites the leaf, and the two get combined, produces sulforaphane, and heals the plant. It turns out that in animals that we have this T-Nox, sulforaphane combined, the T-Nox. Now, if you bind to both sides of the T-Nox molecule at once,
Yes.
you get a synergistic effect. So the combination of sulforaphane from broccoli sprouts and capsaicin and some unknown cofactors from the chili peppers results in a 20-fold increase in the cancer-killing ability of the sulforaphane alone. So we made an application for a patent for that, which unfortunately got knocked back by the US Patent Office. But in the meantime, we'd made up a number of capsules handed out to people with cancer. And the only ones who aren't on chemo that you can find, who don't know they have cancer, are prostate cancer people, because prostate is such a slow-growing cancer that ordinary chemo doesn't work for it.
I see.
Basically, it takes years and years of progression of prostate growing. And for a lot of those people, they had effects within 48 hours, some of them. Instead of getting up 3 or 4 times a night to pee, they were sleeping through the night after 48 hours or after a week of relatively low dosing with this combination. Now, one of the
Yes.
lowest prostate cancer rates on the planet is in Vietnam, which is 1/40th of our prostate cancer
So
rate.
why Vietnam?
Well, if you go to a Vietnamese restaurant, and there are
Yes.
ones pretty close here,
Yes.
and order the national dish of Vietnam, it's called pho, P-H-O, and it's a bowl of noodles with meat floating in it and so on, and there are 3 side dishes.
Yes.
One's mint, one's bean sprouts, and one's chili pepper powder.
Uh-huh.
And I looked at that bean sprout chili pepper powder ratio, and I thought, well, they've got my drug just about right. So it's no wonder they got a very low national prostate cancer rate. And that's one of the strange things about the whole business of cancer in this country. That breast cancer, for instance, has got a very cuddly sort of publicity around it. You know, it's everything should be against breast cancer and all that sort of
Yes.
stuff. Nobody, the women's magazines, nobody tells them, if you had a Japanese diet or Vietnamese diet, you'd have 1/6 of the breast cancer rate. You don't have to have all the suffering and all that sort of stuff. Same with prostate cancer. No one tells people the Vietnamese rate is 1/40th of our rate. Just a minor change in your diet or take a pill and you're set. A lot of cancers actually take 20 years from the initial insult on the cell causing the mutation to the full-blown cancer.
To generate the full-blown cancer.
Yeah.
Why is that long?
Well, at least
Is all cancer the same, approximately, the long-term development, or not?
a lot of them are. Mesothelioma is 30 years or something from asbestos, for instance, but it comes on like a clock. For a cell to become a cancer, it actually has to have half a dozen mutations to overcome the body's own defences against cancer.
That's only if we not have the intakes of the different additives or the different dietary support to fight. Because if we got that, probably they never develop or
at a much slower rate, or they're suppressed or something.
suppressed, yes. On that note, Dave, we have to go for a short break. But after the break, please stay with us because we're coming back with more discussion of cancer or how to prevent with simple methodology.